Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliette Clark, and we have another really great guest today. But before I jump into her, want to remind you guys to go over and take our quiz, the Promote, Profit, Publish quiz. You can find it at www.promoteprofitpublishquiz.com. Find out if you're really ready to publish. If you want to get your book out there in a big way, and let me just tell you, most people don't. Their books flop because they haven't built an audience. Then you have some things that you need to get into place and find out from the quiz if you have them in place or if you need a little bit more work. Also, I want to remind you, go over to our YouTube channel, Super Brand Publishing. You can see all the videos over here. If you're listening on podcast, you can see all of these people in real life. So today's guest is Lorraine Ball, and she's an entrepreneur, an author, a professional speaker, and the host of More Than a Few Words podcast. Lorraine brings creative ideas, practical tips, and decades of real world experience to every conversation. She leans heavily on her experience as a business owner, a former corporate executive, and she delivers solid, usable content in a style that will motivate your audience to action. Welcome, Lorraine. It's great to have you.
It is so nice to be here. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome. So we're going to talk about something a little different today. I know Lorraine and I were talking about before all of you guys jumped on. We were talking about how sometimes our podcasts get where it seems like we're talking about the same thing over and over, and maybe somebody has a little bit of spin, but this is something we haven't delved into before, and it's user-generated content. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So the idea behind user-generated content is creating a channel for your fans, your followers, your audience to put information online about you and your business in a way that you can then repurpose. Now, the most common user-generated content is reviews. All of those review sites, every time you stay at a hotel, every time you check out a grocery store, hey, fill out this survey online. Hey, I get points at Starbucks if you buy my coffee. So reviews are kind of that first step, but that's just really scratching the tip of the iceberg. You can, if you want to build a library of information, you can do all sorts of things that will cultivate that information. Some of my favorite examples, you can run a contest where you encourage people to submit photos if you are a visual brand. And we did this with an eye doctor, and he was launching a pediatric optometry practice. And we ran a contest where you had to share a photograph of your kid wearing glasses. And the prize was fabulous, but we got hundreds of photos of kids wearing glasses that we could use in other marketing material. We could never have gotten that level of authenticity and realism without it. So that's one example, but there's lots more.
That's really cool. It's almost like the cartoon drawings when you go to the dentist, or the pictures of before and after in there. That's a really great idea. So, how would you repurpose stuff like that? What would you do with it?
So, something like that, we actually turned around on Facebook and gave people an opportunity to vote. And then we collected their email addresses, and then we could then market to them again. But another example, and I think maybe more relevant for some of your audience, is you're a professional speaker, you're an author, you want to build that audience, you want to get feedback. Ask a question and collect the answers. And somebody who is a master at this is Jimmy Fallon. He will sometimes on Twitter throw out a question, and then he gets those answers via Twitter. And if you're paying attention, they'll show up in his monologue that night. And it's a great way to get a variety of responses, things maybe you would never have thought about. And it also gives your writers a little bit of a break. But if you're an author and you're trying to build credibility of yourself as a subject matter expert, throwing out questions and then just collecting all those answers, or running a survey and collecting all of that information, all that user generated information. And then you might create a blog post. I did one once where I asked a question of a bunch of women business owners about what they were planning on for the fourth quarter of the year. And I had all these like little 1-paragraph answers, and I just stacked them all together in a blog post. I wrote the intro. I had 600 words written by other people, and then all I needed was a conclusion. You can't do it every week, but every now and then it gives you a little break. And there's another benefit to user-generated content.
What's that?
That is, when you share my stuff, I'm more likely to comment, share, retweet your information. So, hey, did you hear I got mentioned on Jimmy Fallon? Check out this blog post. I'm quoted. Look at this photo. That's my kid. So user-generated content gives you information that you can share and gives you a way to reach a new audience based on the people that you're featuring in your content.
Oh, that's really great. So for those of you at home, I'm going to give you a little exercise. If you don't think this works, try this. Go over to Facebook and just simply put in a post, Brussels sprouts or not. And you will be amazed at all the answers you get. I had a social media person say that at an event, and we did it. And I couldn't believe, like, I never knew people had such strong opinions about Brussels sprouts. My gosh.
Absolutely. We do one, and while we're on the kind of that food sort of food direction, we do a lot of marketing for a company called Randall Beans, and they sell beans in glass jars. And January, all over the country, is chili month. It's football, it's Super Bowl, it's chili. Chili, beans or no beans? Chili, meat or no meat? And we get this great conversation going. So then about halfway through, then I'll put up a note and go, hey, what's your favorite chili recipe? And people start linking with that. And all of a sudden, you've got all of this great content that you can then share. Mm-hmm. We also do recipe submissions. And I think it was Kellogg's. I've seen it with, Lay's potato chips. I've seen it with Lay's potato chips. They run a contest every year, and you suggest a flavor for a potato chip. And some of them are, really interesting. The one that won one year that I thought was really weird was a biscuits and gravy.
Ooh, I remember that.
Okay, that was somebody's idea, and they made money for it. So sometimes if you have enough budget and you've got something that you can make a little more high profile, even putting a prize behind it can be very effective.
Okay, so how do you make, like, my mom made the best biscuits. I can't imagine that a potato chip is going to grab that. So I'm skeptical, very skeptical. So you guys also work a lot with websites. And one of the big challenges that I have with authors is that they immediately want a website. And I think a lot of new business owners do this as well. They think the website is the first thing that they need to put up. And for a lot of them, they need to go out and have a brand and a style guide and like these basic things and content written. What do you see as the biggest thing that businesses are doing on their websites that are a big no-no?
I think one of the critical mistakes that businesses make, and I think particularly coaches, consultants, authors, is they are under the misimpression, if that's a word, that the website is about them. It's not.
Let me just give a little break here. No, sorry.
Your website's not about you. Right. You think it is. Your website is about your customer, your reader, the conference planner who's going to hire you as a speaker. Your website is about your customer. And so when someone comes to your website, whether it's a 1-page or a 100-page, the first thing that they need to know is that they've come to the right place. They're looking for something. They're looking for a speaker for an event. They're looking for information on a topic that you are a subject matter expert on. And you need to be able to tell them they've come to the right place.
Mhm.
Are you looking for X, Y, or Z? Here you go. In today's world, gender diversity is a hot topic. That's, my primary focus. Click here to learn more, or read this to learn more. Once you prove to me that I'm in the right place, that you have something of value that you can give me that will help address my problem, then you earn the right to talk about you, to give me your bio, to give me your credibility, to invite me to buy your book. But too often I get to a website and there's a great big picture of the speaker and it's great on their ego. And here's all about me. And there's like 2 pages of bio. And I'm like, but what do you do? Why should I read all of this? And so I think the first thing is remember who your website's really for. That's absolutely huge.
Yeah. And I want to add to that, you guys too. One of the things that I see when our clients come in is we will write a quiz, and then they'll say, hey, where should I put it on my website? Mm-hmm. And so we go over to the website, and I can immediately tell when you wrote your own copy. Like, spend the money and have a professional do it, because you can tell, and chime in here with me on this. The first mistake I'll see is that you're telling people your process. Nobody gives a damn how you do it. They want to know about your results. Mm-hmm. The second thing is do the colors match you? I mean, how many times I will say there is this healer that her website is red. Like, that doesn't feel healing to me. So, you really have to get into a lot of things like that style guide. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what do those colors, are they in alignment with who you are and what your message is? It's not just, I like yellow and blue.
Mm-mm. No.
Which, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, first off, the colors need to be something that number one, yes, you do have to like your colors. If you don't, you're never going to love all of your branding, but you also have to be aware of what those colors mean to other people.
Yes.
You may love red. Well, I have a love-hate relationship with red. On the one hand, it gets your attention, it gets your heart pumping, but it's also the color of danger and warning. And so, there's that kind of push-pull. And so I like orange rather than red for calls to action and buttons. They're definitely, green is usually associated with wealth. Blue is usually associated with trust. And, and there are variations. So getting a great color palette, and back on what you said about writing your own copy, it's kind of interesting because you work with a lot of authors. These people can actually write, but somehow when you're writing about yourself,
I'm going to tell you what it is. So when I was in advertising, everybody who wrote copy, everybody that was a copywriter, they wanted to write a book. Mm-hmm. Everybody who writes a book thinks they can write copy. They are 2 completely different skills. It is really rare that you can do both. And here's why, you guys. I can copyright all day long. Mm-hmm. I've written several books. My editor will tell you I'm the worst writer on the planet. I'm a great storyteller, which adds to the copywriting. That's pulled from the copywriting. But the 2 are rarely intertwined together.
Well, I think in a book, you have so much more time to develop an idea. Because if somebody is committing to reading a book, they're committing to reading pages. And so you can weave that idea. When someone comes to your website, they have the attention span of a flea. If you can't get them a message in 2 sentences, you've lost them. Mm-hmm. And that kind of brevity and punch is very different. It's a different skill set. So yeah, I've done both, and my copywriting is much better than my long form content for similar reasons. I'm good in little sound bites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that I think that's a real challenge. And I'm going to throw something else out there on the imaging thing. Guys can get away with this longer, women can't. I worked for a guy, and his company photo when he started the company and when he retired 30 years later, he had the same crew cut and the same, I mean, and yeah, he was a little older and there was some chicken, some little crow's feet here. But women, we change our hairstyle, we change our look. On us, 5 or 10 pounds up or down really changes us. I know you loved that picture of you that was taken 15 years ago, that you photoshopped the wrinkles out of 15 years ago. You don't look like that anymore. You have to you have to take and update the pictures, and it's hard because every time I look at a picture, I'm like, "Ooh, I didn't really like that photo 5 years ago, but that was a really good picture. And I don't really like the new one quite as much." That's just the way it is, people.
Yeah.
We change, our looks change. The last thing you want is to have this publicity photo and then you get on a Zoom call like this, and the other person is like,
Well, it feels out of alignment. Back when I
"Mhm,
was I sold real estate when I thought I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. I sold a lot of real estate, and I remember I used to see a big person in our company's ads, and she met me out at a house, and I was like, "Oh, that was 30 years ago." And that it
mhm,
just, to be honest, you guys, I'm going to say something really bad here. It feels egocentric when you're
mhm."
not at like you're not accepting you for you, and people
Yeah.
feel that out of alignment piece with it.
Mhm.
Let's get back to the bios for a minute. You started to say something important about writing your own bio. I think you should never write your own bio because a lot of times you don't see your gifts the way
Mhm.
others do. And I'm going to tell you guys a secret. Even though I'm a good copywriter, I have Gina Husser. I write it, and then she comes back to me and she says, "You call yourself a copywriter." That's what happens with my own stuff.
Mhm.
And she captures when I write and say what I do, she goes back and she makes it sound like it's actually coming out of my mouth, like you can
Yeah.
hear me talking. So, how do you feel about that? Do you think that you should write your own?
I think I used to say, I had a writer that worked here with me, that Allison did the round peg voice better than I did, and it was my company, but her writing style was much more authentic, and she could reflect on paper what I would say out loud.
Uh-huh.
So when she would edit an entry, an introduction to a blog post for me or stuff like that, I'd look at it and go, well, yeah, that's what I meant. So now I have gotten better. I do have some bios and stuff that I have written, but one of my favorite is the one that's on the Round Peg website, which was written by one of our other writers, and we sat down and he just interviewed me, and he pulled out these little nuggets that were not necessarily things I would ever think to put in a bio, but when I read it in its entirety, it's such a wonderful and unique reflection of me. And so, when you're talking about gifts, or just maybe you don't know what part of your skill set is going to resonate with someone else, and letting someone else write it and then kind of going back and forth. I mean, it still has to feel authentic to you. It still has to be, if I listen to you introduce me and you're reading my bio and I'm thinking, woo, that does not sound like me, that's never going to feel right.
Mhm.
So getting that input from someone else and then going back and kind of tweaking it, I think, is a great way to go.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to say, my very first webinar, someone helped me write it, and it wasn't me at all, and it didn't
Mhm.
convert. So your voice really, in fact, I have this little gift in a hand and say, "I have a gift for you." And the webinar coach I hired to help me actually said, "Who the heck was that on that video? I've never seen you do something." Yeah, I'm a little rougher than that. So,
Mhm.
so where can we find you, Lorraine, if we want to know more about what you're up to and how you help?
So I would say more than a few words. Our marketing podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts. That's a great way to start. And much like you, they're short conversations. I do a Sunday morning little 1 minute inspirational dropped in there as well. And then you can go to the Digital Toolbox, which is our online training community at digitaltoolboxin.com.
Very good. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.